The alley reeked of rain and secrets, but nothing could mask the sound of my brother's sharp gasp, sliced by the night. I froze, my sneakers skidding on wet cobblestone, as I caught sight of him. Elliot, my twin, pinned against a brick wall, lips locked with a stranger whose presence screamed trouble. In that fleeting moment, under the flicker of a dying neon sign, I knew our lives were about to unravel. My name is Theo Carver, and I'd spent 25 years being Elliot's shadow, his keeper, his voice of reason. Growing up in Portland's gritty outskirts, we'd learned to dodge fists and whispered slurs together, two queer kids carving out a fragile space in a world that didn't always want us. Elliot was the dreamer, soft-spoken, with a poet's heart and a painter's hands, while I was the realist, always ready to throw a punch or a plan to keep us safe. But tonight, as I watched him melt into the arms of a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a noir film, I felt a crack in the foundation we'd built. The stranger was Caspian Voss, the heir to the Voss dynasty, a name synonymous with power and peril in Portland's underworld. At 26, Caspian was a myth whispered in dive bars and penthouses alike, ruthless, magnetic, and untouchable. His family controlled half the city's ports, their wealth built on shadows and blood. No one crossed a Voss and walked away whole. Yet there was Elliot, his hands tangled in Caspian's dark curls, oblivious to the danger I could feel radiating from the man like heat off asphalt. I ducked behind a dumpster, heart hammering. "Elliot, what the hell are you doing?" I hissed under my breath, but he couldn't hear me. The alley was a cocoon of their own making, their whispers drowned by the hum of the city. Caspian's hand cupped Elliot's face, tender in a way that didn't match the stories I'd heard. Stories of bodies left in the Columbia River, of deals sealed in gunfire. I wanted to storm over, yank Elliot away, but something in his eyes stopped me. They weren't just kissing, they were confessing. It started 3 months ago, though I didn't know it then. Elliot had been sneaking out, claiming late shifts at the art gallery where he worked. I'd chalked it up to his usual whims, painting murals in abandoned warehouses or losing himself in poetry slams. But now, piecing together the late-night texts he'd hidden, the way his sketchbooks had filled with sharp, angular portraits of a man with piercing eyes, I realized he'd been falling for someone. Not just anyone, Caspian Voss. I crept closer, the alley's damp air clinging to my skin. Their voices were low, urgent. "You can't keep doing this," Elliot murmured, his voice trembling but firm. "I won't be your secret." Caspian's laugh was soft, dangerous. "You think I'm ashamed of you? Elliot, you're the only thing in this city worth risking everything for." My stomach twisted. Risk. That word hung heavy, because I knew what it meant in Caspian's world. The Voss family didn't tolerate weakness, and loving someone like Elliot, openly, defiantly, was a weakness they'd crush without hesitation. I'd heard rumors of Caspian's older brother, disowned for less, his name erased from the family's legacy. What would they do to Elliot, a nobody from the wrong side of town? I should have dragged him home right then, but I didn't. Maybe it was the way Elliot's hand lingered on Caspian's chest, or the way Caspian looked at him, not like a predator, but like a man drowning. I backed away, slipping into the shadows, my mind racing. This wasn't just a fling. This was a fuse, and it was already lit. The next morning, Elliot was humming in our cramped apartment, his paint-splattered jeans a stark contrast to the storm brewing in my chest. "You're glowing," I said, trying to keep my voice light as I poured coffee. "Late night." He froze, just for a second, then flashed a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just inspiration, Theo. You know how it is." I didn't push. Not yet. But I started digging. Portland's rumor mill was a beast, and it didn't take long to learn more about Caspian Voss. He wasn't just dangerous, he was a paradox. By day, he played the polished heir, cutting ribbons at charity galas and shaking hands with senators. By night, He ran the family's darker operations, his name tied to everything from smuggling to extortion. Yet, there were whispers of something else, a quiet rebellion. Donations to queer shelters, anonymous grants to artists like Elliot. Was he playing a game, or was he as trapped as we were? That night, I followed Elliot again. He met Caspian at a rooftop bar overlooking the Willamette River, the city's skyline glittering like a promise. I stayed out of sight, nursing a beer at the bar's edge, watching them lean into each other, their laughter cutting through the crowd's chatter. Caspian's hand brushed Elliot's, a small gesture that felt like a declaration. I hated how it made me feel. Jealous, not of their love, but of the way they seemed to see only each other, as if the world's weight didn't exist. Then it happened. A man in a tailored suit approached their table, his face hard, his eyes cold. I recognized him from the news. Lucian Voss, Caspian's uncle and the family's enforcer. The air shifted, heavy with threat. Lucian leaned in, his voice too low for me to hear, but Elliot's face drained of color. Caspian stood, his body a shield between Elliot and his uncle, words sharp and clipped. The confrontation was brief, but it left no doubt. Lucian knew about them, and he wasn't pleased. I followed Elliot home, my mind a tangle of fear and fury. "You're in over your head," I said the moment we were alone, my voice louder than I meant. "Caspian Voss, Elliot? Are you insane?" He didn't flinch. "I love him, Theo. And he loves me. You don't get it because you've never let yourself feel anything this real." His words hit like a slap. I wanted to argue, to tell him love didn't survive in a world like Caspian's, but the truth was, I'd never seen him this alive. Still, I couldn't shake the image of Lucian's cold stare. "They'll destroy you," I said. "The Vosses don't play nice." Elliot's eyes softened, but his voice was steel. "I'm not asking for your permission. I'm asking for your trust." I didn't sleep that night. The city felt like it was closing in, its pulse a warning. I started tailing Caspian, digging deeper. I found out he'd been meeting with a journalist, Maya Torres, who was sniffing around the Voss family's dealings. Was Caspian feeding her secrets, or was he playing her? Either way, it was another thread in the web tightening around Elliot. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. "Back off, Theo." For his sake. My blood ran cold. Someone knew I was watching. I showed Elliot the message, hoping it'd scare him straight, but he just shook his head. "Caspian's trying to change things," he said. "He's not like them." I wanted to believe him, but the city had taught me better. Portland wasn't kind to dreamers, and love didn't stop bullets. I started carrying a knife, a habit from our rougher days, and kept closer tabs on Elliot. He didn't notice, or maybe he did and chose to ignore it. He was too busy falling deeper, meeting Caspian in hidden corners of the city, their stolen moments glowing brighter against the growing shadows. One night, I followed them to an old warehouse by the docks, a place the Vosses used for deals. I hid in the rafters, my heart pounding as I watched Caspian pull Elliot close, their foreheads touching. "I'm getting out," Caspian whispered. "We'll leave together. Just give me time." Elliot nodded, tears in his eyes. "I'll wait." I wanted to scream. Leave? With what? The Vosses didn't let go of their own. But before I could move, headlights cut through the darkness. A black SUV screeched to a stop, and Lucian stepped out, flanked by two men with guns. My breath caught. This wasn't a warning anymore. Caspian pushed Elliot behind him, his voice steady but laced with fear. "Uncle, don't do this." Lucian's smile was a blade. "You've had your fun, Caspian. Now it's time to remember who you are." Elliot stepped forward, his voice shaking but defiant. "He's not yours to control." Lucian's gaze flicked to Elliot, and I saw it. The calculation, the decision. I didn't think. I dropped from the rafters, landing hard, my knife glinting in the dim light. "Back off," I growled, stepping between them. The men raised their guns, but Caspian's voice cut through. "Enough. He turned to Lucian, his jaw tight. You want me? Fine. But you leave him out of this. Lucian laughed, a sound that chilled me. You think you get to choose? The standoff stretched, seconds feeling like hours. Then, a siren wailed in the distance, growing louder. Someone had called the cops, maybe Maya, maybe a bystander. Lucian's men hesitated, and he cursed under his breath. This isn't over, he spat, before signaling a retreat. As the SUV peeled away, Elliot collapsed against Caspian, both of them trembling. I wanted to yell, to drag Elliot home, but all I could do was stand there, the knife still in my hand, the weight of what I'd almost lost crushing me. The next few weeks were a blur. Caspian went quiet, his meetings with Maya stopped, and Elliot grew restless, his sketches darker, his smiles rare. I tried to keep him grounded, but he was slipping away, caught between hope and fear. Then, one night, Caspian showed up at our door, his face bruised, his eyes wild. They know everything, he said. We have to go? Now. Elliot didn't hesitate. He grabbed a bag, his sketchbooks, and me. You're coming too, Theo? I won't leave you behind. I wanted to argue, to say I could handle myself, but the truth was, I couldn't lose him either. We fled to a safe house Caspian had arranged, a rundown cabin in the Oregon woods. It wasn't much, but it was ours, at least for now. Caspian explained his plan. He'd been funneling evidence to Maya, enough to bring down Lucian and weaken the Voss Empire. But it came at a cost. He was a traitor now, and we were all targets. Life in hiding was raw, stripped bare. We cooked over a fire, shared stories under starlight, and slowly, I saw Caspian for what he was, not a myth, but a man, flawed and fighting for something real. He loved Elliot in a way that was fierce, unguarded, and it made me question every wall I'd built around myself. Maybe love wasn't a weakness. Maybe it was the only thing worth risking. One night, as we sat by the fire, Elliot took my hand. Thank you, he whispered, for staying. I nodded, my throat tight. Always. The end came faster than we expected. Maya's story broke, a bombshell that exposed the Voss family's crimes. Lucian was arrested, the empire crumbling. But the danger wasn't over. We knew they'd come for Caspian, for us. So we made a choice, not to run forever, but to stand our ground. We returned to Portland, braver and broker than ever. Caspian used what was left of his influence to protect us, while Elliot painted, his art a quiet rebellion against the city's shadows. I found my own path, volunteering at a queer youth center, helping kids like us find their voice. We weren't free, not entirely, but we were together, and that was enough. In the end, love didn't save us from the darkness. It taught us to walk through it. Elliot and Caspian built a life, not perfect, but theirs. And me? I learned to let go, to trust, to believe that even in a city of secrets, some truths, like love, like family, were worth fighting for.